Hey, Tony, and welcome to another Bancroft Brothers animation podcast.
Hey, Tom. Yes, Tom and Tony Bancroft. We're the animation twins. Worked at Disney for many years. Love animation. Used to talking about it all the time. And we decided, let's make a podcast so we can talk about it with our friends.
Wait, you know what? Let's hang up that phone that we're using and just put a mic in front of us and record it.
That's right. It's
That's
just that
kind of
easy.
what happened, I
That's
think.
the definition of a podcast these days.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was about 10 years ago now. And so we have been moving forward just like our industry has. We have a really exciting, I think, a very in the moment kind of a podcast today, because we are going to be talking about generative AI in animation. And so we're going to get there in a second, Tony, because
I'm going to get hostile, Tom. I might get a little hostile.
Somebody hold him back. Yeah. Tonight we have a very special guest, and this is somebody that's new to us. Honestly, this isn't like one of our other podcasts where it's old friends from 20 years ago,
but he's a new friend.
Yes. And somebody I've been following on Instagram because his company and our studio, and along with him, are doing some very innovative things. They're doing it in some cases with 2D animation and layering in AI as a tool. And that's going to be the underlying thing here. I want to go back real quick, Tony, and just say, this is what we're considering our unofficial third part of a series we didn't know we were creating on AI, AI in animation. And the first one was, please go back and watch it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tony. The first one was, with Nico from Corridor Crew.
Yep.
And he came on and he gave his viewpoints because they had done some interesting things using live action and then kind of layering AI over it to make it a stylized kind of anime look. We talked about that. In the second episode, which were, a few months later, we did another one with a friend that we had just made online, which was he worked at Meta. And so while he wasn't a part of their AI crew or anything, he knew a lot about it, and he was sharing his kind of insights on sort of the technology, where it was at, and we kind of dug into a deeper dive into AI and the pros and cons, but also like what were the stop gates right now at that moment with AI.
Right. And it's adapted a lot since then. And so, Paul, we have our new friend Paul Trillo with us. Paul Trillo is a innovative, rebellious kind of guy, but does a lot of stuff with not only AI, but with computers, videos. He's a director of music videos. He's a writer. He's an animator himself too, done all kinds of stuff, really revolutionary stuff. Let's have him join us now, Tom. Let's hear it for Paul Trillo.
Here it is, Paul Trillo.
Wow. Wow, what an introduction. I am honored to be considered a new friend already. Just after meeting already.
Yes. I mean,
means a lot. Honestly, you guys are childhood heroes of mine, even though I'm just realizing that now. The things that you have touched have shaped my imagination. So it's an honor to be on the podcast.
Is it us and Star Wars are the reason you are where you are?
It's
it's
pretty paint by numbers. My influence and all the people in my generation, the influences are very similar. Yes, I grew up in Marin County, near Skywalker Ranch.
Oh wow!
My neighbor was the literal architect of the Death Star. He had an architecture background and drew blueprints for it. So Star Wars was I was making stop motion Star Wars films with my toys when I was a kid while I was watching Aladdin and Lion.
Fantastic.
Did your neighbor ever let you see one of the mock-ups he had, or did you
he gave me he gave me some random inconsequential doodads, like the pod race arena. All the crowd was made out of Q-tips, like painted Q-tips.
Yeah.
And they would just below, they would kind of just use hand puppets to kind of make the crowd
move them up and down.
Wild. So surprisingly, there was practical effects used in episode 1, and I got some of those Q-tip audience members from
I was thinking, okay, what could be inconsequential in that kind of an arena of Star Wars? And you found one. That's
yeah,
that'd be hard to describe.
School memorabilia.
No, this is
imagine.
worth thousands, I promise you.
Yes, I'm sure. It's probably
thousands of pennies.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's so awesome.
Yes.
Paul, we've come to know you through online, and you've kind of gone viral with a new video here that we saw first on Instagram called "A Love Letter to LA." That's the song by Cuco, I believe it is, right?
Cuco. Yeah,
Cuco. I'm sorry, Cuco's the band.
So it's a music video,
and it's a music video called "A Love Letter to LA." And boy, is it! The style is really cool. With these Hispanic characters walking around in LA. If you guys haven't seen it, and then you found ways, Paul, in artistically directing the animation to incorporate not only a unique style, but also camera rotations, camera movements that would have been really difficult to do by hand. And you used AI as a tool, and we've talked about, a lot of people are out there trying to use AI right now to make something from scratch, and it's fully produced and it's completely done. And they've done, I just saw a video the other day, as a matter of fact, and maybe you've seen this too, Paul, where it's like a father and his 9-year-old daughter, and they made a kind of a Miyazaki looking film, and it was 100% done on AI, and they spent probably hours doing it. I mean, that's the thing they don't talk about is all the, how did they work it out? How did they do all the iterations? How many hours did it take? But I look at it and I'm going, okay, but there's no story and there's nothing to this, and it's a complete copy. But what you guys did, which I do love, is that you created something unique, original, and you used AI as a tool. Can you tell us a little bit about
artists were involved in the making of this.
100%.
Yes.
That's what I really want to dig into is that's kind of the theme of this podcast, and we may blow it up. You might tell us something that blows this up, but how do we use AI as a tool in animation? Is it possible? Because
I'd love to get into it.
I'm so tired of everybody selling AI as a tool, but then showing us clips that were just a prompt and it's from 0 to finished. That's not a tool, as we all know.
No, that's like an advanced stock footage search like library essentially is what's happening there. Where do we start? I mean, you clearly picked up on what is unique about the project, and the point was to not appeal to the AI audience, the AI bros on the internet and the AI grifters trying to sell this as look what I made on my lunch break, look what I made in 24 hours. This was really about what happens when you do have a team of animators, artists, people with a traditional background working together for 3 months, and then where does AI play a role and accelerate or elevate the process versus just using it as a gimmick?
So can you break it down for us? Take us back. I mean, I think a lot of people have seen the video and if you haven't, go on to YouTube or Instagram, you're going to find
Love Letter to LA, Cuco.
And it's and you have some nice making of videos too that sort of show clips of the progress,
which was critical.
Thanks for doing that.
I've always been releasing behind the scenes videos on my work for over 10 years now. I do a lot of live action. I primarily do live action work, but I feel like I'm the behind the scenes, the making of, the demystifying of the process is part of my messaging. I'm not one of these magicians that doesn't like to show their tricks. I'm super transparent about it because what people, if I can, lay out a process, I don't need to own that process because what people make with the same steps that I use will be completely different than what I make with those same steps. And so it's about encouraging people to to play around and
to try
things.
Yeah. So this, how did you, was this through an ad agency that you got this job? How did this come about?
Yeah.
And,
well, and I want to throw in an element here, which is a little bit of the business side, but it's also that I know music videos don't pay very much. And so I kind of want to hear, is that an element of why you chose to go this direction or not too? So start from the beginning if you can.
For sure. Yeah. So it came about since I've been playing with AI tools, workflows, in combination with traditional VFX and animation, since it was really possible to do it, going back really to 2020 when GAN models, or what they were called then, were available. So I've always been kind of interested in using AI, but always in combination with making your own material, whether you're shooting it or animating it or compositing it. And so I think I've been on people's radars because of my exploration and experimentation, and all of my projects, I'm always trying to look for something I haven't done before. So I try to come at it from like, okay, what's something that's going to be a great experience? What's going to be something meaningful, something that people want to watch, but also what's something that I haven't done before that is technically ambitious, that doesn't necessarily have a tutorial or roadmap. And those areas, those combinations of like creating something enjoyable to watch, but also like technically unknown, are that's like my playground. And so
that's unique though, Paul. I got to say that's unique, because I think a lot of people would be scared, would be fearful of trying something new, especially on a gig that
I thrive in fear.
That's the podcast with us. But, honestly, Lasseter, was that guy way back when, at the beginning days of Pixar, they were doing animation tests, little short films to try out software that they were developing. So it was a marketing tool to some degrees, but they didn't know if it was going to come out right, and they would struggle.
And you need the creative to push the technology. Like doing one-off shot tests is not really going to advance the technology. It's just demonstrating the technology. So you need story requests, you need creative requests to really push the edge of what the technology can do.
And a deadline, right?
And deadlines definitely help move the needle. So anyway, so I've been known for my experimentations with AI and trying to approach it in a way that feels more akin to traditional production. And Microsoft connected myself with this music artist, Cuco, who's also an LA artist. And Cuco has been working with a LA fine artist, visual artist, sort of street artist turned gallery artist named Paul Flores, who makes work that is actually rooted in sort of retro cartoons. He's referencing cartoons from the 50s, from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s and 90s. Like he's kind of referencing cartoons, but in like Chicano culture, and kind of collaging it with street art. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting starting ground. We have like an amazing music artist and a very specific visual artist who is sort of remixing culture in his work, in the DNA already, and in a way that is sort of what AI is doing as well. It's like it's a remix of culture, and so
that's a nice way of putting it, by the way.
That's the soft way of describing it.
But a hardware company,
also a bastard.
I'm sorry, you're saying a hardware company,
Microsoft,
a computer hardware companies, Microsoft.
Well, they do
put you guys together. They put you guys together.
Or they reached out there. Yeah, right. They reached out to, I think, a few different music artists, 3 different music artists. And I think those music artists then were paired with a visual director. And so in this campaign, there's also a music video that was made I think they used AI, like a costume designer used AI to kind of iterate on costume ideas. There's another one that's sort of it's a music artist, but they've made an interactive open world game with chatbots that are AI. And it's just world building. And so they're all like 3 different avenues. This is sort of a music video what we did, but also is going to be adapted into Cuco's live visuals for his summer tour. So we've built like thousands of assets actually for this project. They're all going to get remixed in a live setting. But I saw Paul's work and I was like immediately attracted to it because it just reminded me of the cartoons that I grew up on in the 90s. This somewhere between Nickelodeon, almost like Rocko's Modern Life meets like MTV liquid television type of aesthetic, where
I could see
and
that.
a bit of R crumb in there as well, where there's the stippled ink and like hyper detailed and a little bit like grungy and gritty and has
kind
this
of
texture to it.
Simple characters, but with lots of textures and things. Yeah,
right,
that's the
exactly.
crumb element. I see that.
I see a little bit of that character design element from the 60s interstitial they used to play in theaters called "Let's All Go to the Lobby." Have you ever seen that one?
Oh yeah, of course. I love that.
Hey, deep cut, Tony. Good job.
I know, deep cut. Right?
Proud of you.
Let's all go to the lobby. Anyway, it's like popcorn and stuff.
Is that only from the 60s?
No, it goes back much further.
Because they're referencing even older animation.
I think it's 50s.
But and there is some 70s inspiration as well in there. And anyways, I was like, okay, this is interesting because this is not something. It's a very unique aesthetic that he's honed in on, Paul Flores, and it's not something that is easily replicated with AI. It's in terms of just I just want a text prompt in the style of, you're going to get a very watered down, uninteresting version if you just were to use a foundational model that just
that's true of everything though, isn't it? I mean, it's all going to be the water, unless it's me right now.
It's an average. Well, that we can get into that later. I think they fine-tuned that. But it's AI is like this averaging process, and it kind of just like subdues aesthetics in a way, and it's like collaging aesthetics, and you can get some interesting hallucinations and aberrations from that, but like it also it creates the least interesting version of something if you're just doing pure text prompting. And so the point was like, okay, can we work with Paul Flores to design a custom model based on his work that is true to his style, and that's something that he approves and that he's consenting to and that he's actually helping us build. And so the process, I can like quickly walk through it, but essentially I wrote a bunch of wild scenes. My prompt was, Cuco wants to do this animated film, make it weird. I was like, okay, I can go weird if that's my only parameter.
Wait, who wrote you a prompt?
His manager.
Okay. So you're the AI.
Everyone's exactly.
All right.
I mean, we've been prompting humans for since the beginning of time.
They're called art directors.
Yeah, exactly. I come from live action directing, and that's why I'm always like, well, I'm always prompting the DP or the production designer to do something. It's like I have to be able to use my words to describe what I want. But then I also grew up wanting to do animation and kind of pivoted towards live action, and now have found myself coming back to animation. And so this was really exciting. I originally went to school for drawing and painting at California College of the Arts in the Bay Area. And so I drew the storyboards, and so any chance I get to go back and storyboard myself, I take those opportunities, because that's where I work out my ideas. That's where I discover things. It's still like, you know, pen to paper, but in this case it was pencil to iPad. And then we identified like the key art assets, like you would anyways. You're like, okay, here's the key character poses, key angles, key props, key whatever, background, buildings, car, whatever, objects, and distilled that down to like a list of 60 items. And so Paul Flores spent 3 to 4 weeks drawing those 60 assets that were like the key art that also made it into the final project as well.
And quick pause. Does that mean of the character? Because there's a main character that's kind of going through all these
so the character sheet
with
the character sheet,
like a whole turn sheet, kind of
full turnaround sheet, some expression sheets. So we're still doing that process, right? We're still manually, because it's a very specific character. Again, like the proportions are strange, the leg shape. It's not something AI understands at all.
It's kind of got Roger Rabbit legs.
Yeah, exactly.
Baggy,
These like baggy Jinko jean, Roger Rabbit kind of bell shaped character design. And it's very unique, and we needed every angle of that. We needed his facial expressions. There's a lot of things that were unique that were not going to be able to be generated for the best. And the whole point of this project
that's consistency that we're talking about, and I hope later on we can talk more about consistency, but that I assume was a really important element for consistency reasons too, that character wasn't always changing and evolving, right? Yeah.
So the more drawings we get of our main character, of the Cuco character, the better it's going to be for everyone, for the training, but also for our 2D animators that were animating. They need to know how to reference every angle and expression and everything. It's the same for any production. And so the point was like, okay, what are the parts of the process of an animated production that need to stay intact, and where you don't reduce quality, you're not sacrificing creativity, you're not sacrificing control, but what are the parts of the process that are mechanical, that people don't actually like to do? Things that actually maybe take away from the creative because of timeline, and you have to make shortcuts anyways. Can those parts be kind of fixed or augmented, so that we're focusing our animation energy in the right places, and letting the AI do the things that we don't want to do. So it really started with, so Paul made those 60 assets, including the character design, like you called out. We trained a model. We then had him come into the studio. So this was also produced with my creative studio here in LA called Asteria. And this was like our first bigger production that's been released. It's still a short film, but it's, in terms of like hours and everything, it's the most energy we put into something. And had a team here in LA train a model. Paul Flores came into the office, and no, all the work that was being generated from his drawings, which I think was kind of a head trip for him, to see this weird, like someone holding a mirror to and being like, "Is this you?" And this hall of mirrors kind of distortion.
Let's dig into that, because I saw that he designed a bunch of assets, which you've already said, that gets fed into the computer. I'm not using the right terms.
Is there a certain app that you're using too? Is it Midjourney, or does it?
No, it's much more custom than that. So
it is. Okay.
These are open source tools that are run on local machines. We have we have tons of local compute power here. It's pretty heavy computationally to train custom models. It's all done through all the like custom workflows are done through Comfy UI, which is a sort of node-based. It's akin to like Nuke or DaVinci Resolve or something, and sort of like a node-based workflow. and the training takes weeks as well. So so Paul came in and looked at the synthetic data essentially, and was like, that's whack. Oh no, that's actually how I would draw something. Oh, that's actually better than how I would draw something, like whatever. And he went through and we took his curated assets and fed that back into retraining a new model. We trained many models and also used many different models for. You'd have an overall style model, you'd have a character model. There's one that's better for animation, one that's better for assets. So they all serve different purposes. And you can see how this is like a new sort of job in a way, right? Is someone that is an expert at training and being able to create all these models. It is a lot of manual work.
Now wait, just real quick, because we don't understand this at all. When you say manual and training it, what do you mean exactly? Is it the manual
because it's
creating the elements, or is that somehow?
I mean, one, you have to caption the data. You have to caption the assets. You have to curate the data set. You have to then monitor the training, and something can be overtrained, and where it then starts to deviate. There's sort of a sweet spot in the training process where it's like a baby trying to learn how to see the world through the lens of a very specific kind of narrow path. So you're like, okay, it has all the concepts, right? In the foundational model, it has all the concepts of the world, but it's like, but you're a little bug that sees the world through the Paul Flores style. So now you have to relearn all your knowledge, but through this specific perspective of the world.
I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying, because it sounds like almost like raising a child to see through the eyes of his two parents, as opposed to a village raising that child. And now it's getting all those different perspectives. So Paul Flores, he literally created 10 to 12 images. You put that into your system, your generative AI system. And then I'm guessing you had how you're training it is you're building upon it, letting it start to understand what the Paul Flores style is by prompting it, right? You're saying, okay, now create a train in that style, create a flagpole in that style. And Paul Flores is coming in, he's looking at those images that now your AI system created and saying, yes, no, yes, no. And the yeses, it's learning.
And then
learning comes in.
Exactly. So then we retrain the model from the ground up again. So kind of throw out the old model and then start it again with this new batch of curated assets from Paul Flores. But it was really trying to use his work as the North Star and make sure that his voice was represented throughout the process, which I think is actually somewhat unique in a way in terms of an animation production, where you start with concept art, and the concept artist is not the animator, right? Maybe in certain small productions, but most of the time, unless it's an indie film animation director, that concept art kind of mutates over time, and in some ways gets diluted. Sometimes it gets elevated, but other times you start to see this really amazing concept art that has all this detail and imagination, and then the final thing you're like, it kind of looks like the concept art, but there's something romantic about concept art.
They had to take out a few lines because it was too hard to draw. It was take too long to draw each drawing. 100%. Simplified.
You have to simplify to scale a production, and totally understand that. But I guess the proposition was, what if you don't have to simplify? What if you can actually retain the artist's voice and their hand? And I kind of say it's like extending an artist's hand, right?
Yeah.
So the artist's hand a lot of the time just ends here, and then it gets carried on by another artist, or it gets carried through production. And what if you could extend their hand all the way to the end?
Paul, this is such good information. I just want to thank you already, because Tony and I can speak for all the artists that are listening to this podcast right now, which are, nobody's broken it down to actually, we hear all these terms, oh, okay, you're training a model. Right. Oh, what does that really mean? And especially from an artistic standpoint. And so at this point, it sounds like, because I want to layer this in and we can get back to it later, but this is now a copyrightable character that you've just created, because you didn't go through the mid journeys of the world that are all dirty. This is a clean database, basically.
Yeah. A clean model, as you say, right?
Yeah, we own this. The foundational model is still built on other work, and so we can get into what Asteria and Moon Valley is doing, is building a foundational model that has completely licensed data in it, and it is truly clean. It's cleaner than what Adobe has claimed to do, but. Yeah, I can get into that in a minute.
Well, let's debate that for a second, because because Tom's right. I feel like I am getting a bigger and better picture for how to use AI as a tool and keep it what we call, I guess it's a clean model, is what we're saying, which means the influences of the AI generator are very select into, in this case, Paul Flores and his whole world of drawing, his whole style is that input. But you're also saying, I think too, that there is a basis of some kind of foundational model that it's built on. And you can use the stuff that everybody else is using, it seems like, online, which is, I mean, we talked about this in one of our other earlier AI podcasts, where we heard about how the industry in general, the AI model, goes back 10, 15 years before people realized that machine learning was just going on the internet and scraping, I think that's what they call it, right? Scraping all the data that it found on all the social media platforms. And
they were given permission
movies
by Meta, you know?
Yeah. And but nobody, that was all copyrighted material, right? And this is the part that I literally have asked so many people, because I teach at a school. AI is being adapted now for schools and for even for our visual artistic programs, animation, fine arts. I mean, everything.
They want us to explore it. They want it to be a part of the program.
But I'm always like, but ethically, can a corporation, can a school, can even individuals use the kind of off the street AI, generative AI systems, knowing that it was built on, and kind of the brain of it, if you will, is all copyrighted material? And how is that legal? Why isn't the government, legislating any of that? It's like the Wild West, and we're just everybody's going wild, and all this money is being poured into this. I mean, so much money,
billions.
That's why it hasn't stopped. That's why nobody wants to stop it, because it means all this money would come to an end, right? I don't know. What's your perspective on the bigger, broader world of AI and how it's been trained?
Yeah. So 100% to all of that. What has happened is these models were trained sort of incognito at first, before people were aware. There was a foundational data set of scraped internet information called Leyon. I believe it's like Laion is the data set, and it informs a lot of foundational models. And there's a lot in there that, I think there's a place where you can even see if have I been trained, and has something made it into the Leyon data set. And this kind of was like the original sin of AI, and has unfortunately tainted the power and the sort of the benefits of AI is because it started from an unethical point. And there has been ethical uses of AI, like they've used it in Spider-Verse, right, where they did machine learning on their own data to do the kind of pencil sketches around the chin and nose and stuff. That was in the original Spider-Verse film. This is like that. So AI has been automating things for a while. This kind of expedited that, because the data set was so much larger. There were so many more concepts of parameters in it. And once that was kind of released or kind of got sent around to all these AI companies, this data set, it was kind of like game over. And it was just like, all right, well, these are the new rules. Everyone's going to like be stealing stuff. And that's the only way to stay competitive is like, we all have to be stealing stuff.
Can I back that up a question here?
Sure.
So this story, and this goes in those same lines. My understanding is that OpenAI originally was a not-for-profit. It was a nonprofit organization that was doing it in the name of science, developing these AIs. And I don't know if that layers into this certain one that you're talking about, but they were given permission to do a lot of things in the name of science and nonprofit. Then one day they just decided we're going to be for profit. And they didn't have to change a thing. They just kept all the work that they had already stolen.
Dollars.
Yeah.
And it was a huge Trojan horse.
Yeah, it was. And so I want the world to know that, because a lot of our artist friends,
I agree. Yes.
Don't know. And they're the maker of ChatGPT, one of the biggest, I think it profitable, is the biggest AI out there, right?
With the most users, the most profit for sure.
Yeah. And so that dirty little secret, we can assume most of the world really doesn't know that. They're like, how did this happen?
It was kind of overnight, but it wasn't, because it was happening in secret.
Is any of that copyrightable, legally copyrightable? Anything made with ChatGPT, made from any of this Leyon, is it Leyon data
Leyon, anything that has,
anything that has that as its basis, it's machine learning.
Tony, that part doesn't even matter anymore, because they all did the same thing then after that. So they're all dirty,
there's kind of two related but different things, which is like copyright and ethical, right? Ethical is dependent on the person,
right? I think you're ethical from what we're hearing, Paul. You didn't have to go about doing this the way you did it, and we'll get back to that in a second. But can you talk about the copyright side of it?
So in order for something, so far what the courts have proven is that you could copyright an AI image if it has a certain threshold of human intervention. So that you've edited, you've manipulated an AI image, photoshopped it, color corrected it.
So you could paint over it or something.
Exactly. And then once it reaches, however they define that threshold of manipulation, of editing, then it can be copyrighted.
Right.
But copyright is still also a little bit different than like legality, because maybe the person that because whatever, there's a precedent for collage art, right?
But one was just
Andy Warhol.
Yeah,
Andy Warhol's a good example. Yeah,
we just did Animation Weekly recap where we found a news article recently. And it was about upholding the copyright. And it was more of a fine artist that had been used, kind of training in AI. I don't know how, it didn't go deep into it. So did he create a clean user base, or database or model off of his style and all that, like we're talking about? But it was more abstractish, I'm guessing, fine artish kind of a style. And then, but he did do something prompt based. And that's kind of, I think, Tony, what we're talking about is the copyright seems to really kind of slam down.
Yeah, you can't just do text. You can't just do prompt to image and then you own it.
Whatever comes out is not going to be copyrighted. They can slam the door on that because it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get into now spoof, Mad Magazine used to get sued all the time, and there's a legal line, and it has to go before a judge. Let's be honest. There's no way to legally prove it until it's been judged by a judge, but and that's true of all copyright, by the way. But you do have to basically spoof something. In back to the Mad Magazine version of this is, at what point is their spoof on Grease, the old movie? I just went back to the 70s, sorry. But that movie spoof that they do, even though it looks like the characters and all that, but it is a drawn version. And it's condensed down to only 6 pages or so.
Right.
that's obviously a spoof. They're not even saying the same lines they say in the movie, so it's pretty clearly a spoof. And I think there's a 60-40%, something like it has to be 60% new material to the 40% that they spoof, and how you really figure that out. Again, that's where a judge would have to come in and really.
It's a matter of opinion at a certain point.
It is, and you have to have a judge that basically says yes or no.
So so there is ways, for the people using these tools to find ways to copyright and to justify it and then find precedent. I actually don't really take issue with as much with the people playing around with these tools. Fair enough. Fan art has existed for a long time. That's not so much the issue. The issue is how the data was mined, how it was scraped, who authenticated that, who gave the marching orders, who told the people to break into Watergate. That's where the crime is at some point someone was like, take this thing that we don't own and let's make a product out of it is essentially what's happening. And the ways in which you kind of acquired that data can be found to be illegal. And I think that's what kind of matters. Whatever, people want to Ghiblify their family photos, sure, why the hell not? It's going to be the flavor of the week and then we'll move on. It's boring, but it's for some people are having fun. Miyazaki probably wants to hang himself. But
poor Hayao. I mean, he's so against it, and it's.
I know it's the worst person to do it to.
I know.
Yeah, they should have done Aladdin.
Hey, right. Hey now. I know why you did that.
But whatever. Like it wasn't right. But what is more problematic is that OpenAI has profited off of a product built on a foundation of material that was acquired illegally, and that's where the kind of crime is. But
here's what and we're going to go back to your story as the making of this music video. But I'm glad we took this detour in a way to kind of go through some basics that people kind of need to know and answer a few questions I think that were going to come up anyway. I lost my train of thought. That rarely happens at my age.
Back to the process. No.
Well, let's go back. Let's come back to that.
Tom's data set isn't well trained. So.
You need to fine tune.
It's falling apart. But let's go back because you were taking us to the process, and thank you for doing that because you're answering a ton of questions for artists out there that don't know, and Tony and I too. That now you've got. We'll just say you now have this. You have this trained model on Paul Flores's style.
Right.
Now you go by the way, compliments to you. I have a feeling you've never created a production pipeline to make an animated short film before. Maybe
not like
to this degree.
Not like
but
this.
you're also making up steps, right?
Yes.
Honestly, you have because of how you're trying to use AI as a tool.
We're building the plane as we're flying it for sure.
Yeah. And so compliments to you. So now is the next step. Oh wait, now we gotta animate this. Did you play with the idea? Was the original goal, I want to do prompt at this point and tell it what to do and see if that turns out? Or did you immediately go to 2D hand-drawn animators?
Yeah. So the project also was kind of packaged to me with a lead animator who I definitely want to shout out. Eric Foster is his name. He's a LA-based 2D animator. He also, I think, does some 3D and motion graphics work, but he does hand-drawn frame by frame work. And so that was always part of the DNA of the project. I think originally Eric was like, oh yeah, I'll do all the 2D work. And I was like, sure about that? Okay, we'll see. Because my storyboards are pretty gnarly. So So in the back of my head, I was like, there's going to be a team of 2D animators that are going to support Eric as the lead animator. But I don't think we had prescribed how AI was going to be used in the process. It was very much like, let's figure it out as we go. And and figuring it out as we go meant I talked to all the animators and was listening to them. Started with that, just as I was like trying to honor Paul Flores's aesthetic through the end. I wanted to listen to the 2D animators and hear from them. All right, what do you want to do? Here are my storyboards. What of my storyboards are you drawn towards? I kind of gave everyone an opportunity to do this up for grabs thing and take different vignettes and
take ownership of them, right?
Yeah, and throw away my boards and rethink it. Like if you have a better idea, that's how I always operate as a director. Is I want people to feel like they have agency in the process.
Yeah,
and also to listen to them and say, all right, what don't you want to do? What about this sucks? You know.
I'm wondering, did somebody get so bristly that they quit at that point? They're like, what? You're going to throw AI into this? I'm out.
Well, yeah. So onboarding people was a little bit like, it gave me a little pause at the beginning because I was finding also kind of a unique aspect of this was all the talent was scouted through Instagram. I guess how you found me was me just
hey, that works,
diving
baby.
in. It does. And there's a lot of great talent out there and they're all over the world. Yeah. We had five 2D animators. We had other animators as well working in After Effects and Blender and 3D. But the 2D animators were all found on Instagram in 5 different countries. So it was like Mexico, Argentina, Spain, London, US, and Colombia. And I was like, okay, so I love your work. Your style is really good for this project. I'm so sorry to say this, but we might be using AI in this process. And I was like, I was ashamed.
Yeah.
I was ashamed to admit it. Because I don't know what people, I know everyone feels under threat.
Well, anybody old school 2D, this is our world. They freak out when they hear that, right?
Sure,
this is
of course.
The biggest fear coming to life right there from Paul.
It's like you're working with the enemy all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I felt guilty when asking, but they were all very surprisingly open to it. They didn't know how we were going to use it either yet, but they're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And as I, was onboarding people and assigning scenes and characters to people, I was listening and asking like, okay, what don't you like about the process? And a lot of them were like, well, do we have to draw the backgrounds? Because it's all this very like crumb, like inked look to it. It's heavy ink, so it's not something that
and you're moving through.
It's obvious.
It too. Yeah, and you're moving.
It's not obvious how we're doing it, so it feels like everything has to be drawn frame by frame, even including the backgrounds.
Right.
And I was like, okay, let's see if we don't have to. Let's see if we can take the whole background design and animation off the animators' plates and have them focus on the things they like to do, which is the character animation, the keyframes, the expressions, the personality of the characters, the personality of the motion, as well as some of these trippy transitions that we threw in there that are done by hand, frame by frame. AI would not be able to do that. And I was like, those are the most creative parts of the animation process. You just focus on that. And we started with taking backgrounds off their plate, but no one wants to draw every window of a building. Unless there's some like psychos out there that do like that. But like, most people don't want to do that. Eric Foster, the lead animator, was like, I hate drawing cars. Please don't make me draw a car because, you start to draw, I come from drawing, you start to draw a car and then as you go, it gets like more and more mutated and you're like, ugh. Like you start to lose the architecture of the car. And anyways, there's things that animators don't have a lot of fun doing.
They want to do the character. Let's be honest.
Yeah, everyone wants to do character and the keyframes and the motion of that and how crazy can you get? And so those things, and then also the other thing was everyone was very upfront with me, and they're like, I'm not drawing all those dots. Like, no way in hell am I stippling every frame. Yeah, they're like, I just can't do that.
Well, and with the goal of tracing that per drawing, as that character say turning,
exactly,
not jittering around and all that. That's
or jittering in the right way, you know.
Yeah. So for the non-artists
in a way that doesn't buzz your eye.
Yeah, that could be a real job unto itself if you're tracing
exactly.
that. So keep going.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So certain asset creation, background animation, camera animation, stippling ink. We will have other artists that do that. We still had 3D animators. I did actually a lot of the camera design animation and camera blocking. I built out the Cuco city. So Cuco town, that was another fun aspect of this project was, so we had Paul Flores's model. We trained a handful of buildings, and now we have infinite buildings we can create. It was another exciting thing was like, okay, now the background doesn't have to repeat. You know, I'm sure you guys are used to like having to repeat backgrounds, repeat buildings, whatever it might be.
Yeah, right.
Now we have now the background never has to repeat, which was really exciting. And so I took like hundreds of buildings and fire hydrants and cars and lampposts and ATM machines and ran them through an AI process that converts 2D objects into 3D. And so we could scale, like hundreds of assets and put that into a 3D environment. And that was all laid out manually, both in Blender and After Effects. And now we have this world that we can get repeatable environments. We can, if we need a shot, reverse shot, if we want a really dynamic camera move, now we're designing that all in 3D. And then
now he can literally walk through the town, and the town is kind of going away.
You could go in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're curbing the architecture of the city.
Here's a technical question about that.
Sure.
Because you do have a lot of those camera moves where you're kind of going deep into Z depth,
like one point perspective. Yeah.
One point perspective kind of thing. Is that Blender you're doing that in, creating kind of the model with AI, but then Blender to create the move, or can AI do that? Can AI distort and change angles or create camera moves into things?
It can kind of do some like trippy. There's a moment where there's this MC Escher staircase where it goes from like high angle to low angle. That was a transition done with AI, so that Aztec staircase went from like it was a totally optical illusion effect that would have been hard to do with geometry. So I mean, it could be done, but it would be very laborious and look more mechanical. So there's moments where we like use AI to like keyframe certain things like that. But for the most part, we used we laid everything out in 3D space in Blender and After Effects. So After Effects now, I don't know if there's any After Effects users listening, but After Effects 3D capabilities in the last like year and a half have increased a lot. And so we can build full 3D with models with complex geometry all within After Effects. And we used a tool called Rodin, RODIN, to take our 2D assets and convert them into 3D objects. And there's some hallucination that happens in that process, but I won't go.
And that's an AI app. That's an AI.
That's another AI tool, Rodin.
Okay.
So
Rodin.
So now we have this 3D world, and it looks kind of like poorly rendered, almost like PlayStation 1 sort of graphics.
Yeah.
Not very pleasing, and looks very jarring against the 2D animation. So that's where AI then comes in, not as an asset generator, but as a render engine. And it's a process called style transfer. So we're taking our 3D layout, our shot composition, and we're style transferring it back into the Paul Flores style. So it kind of goes from this 2D to 3D back to 2D process, so that every frame, if you hit pause, it looks like everything was drawn. And it's more complex than a cell shader, right? A cell shader, that you guys, I'm sure, I think is also controversial maybe into certain animators.
No, not really.
Like doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, now we're like accustomed to it, but it doesn't it doesn't
Yeah.
feel right. It still feels like
It's too perfect,
too 3D.
probably.
Yeah. And there's some imperfections. Basically, when it does the style transfer process, it does a thing called denoising, and it deconstructs the input image. So it's our 3D background. It kind of breaks it apart. It scatters the pixels, and then it takes the Paul Flores style model and reprojects that and sees the input image through the Paul Flores thing and creates a new frame.
And are you saying frame by frame it does that, or are you deconstructing it, making them into frames and redoing every single frame?
It's happening frame by frame, but there is a tool. This is all within Comfy UI, the node-based program, all open source. There's a tool called model called Animate Diff that creates this temporal consistency. So I know I'm throwing a ton of technical stuff at you guys, but
That's
maybe
fine.
it's interesting.
There's
frame by
are following you, so keep going.
I hope so. This is it's getting very niche now. But if it were to be frame by frame, you would get really jittery. It would look very AI. And so the whole point of this was to smooth it out and for this to feel like retro 2D animation. And so Animate Diff kind of creates this temporal consistency. So that same process, I'll try to get through the last kind of really the biggest breakthrough for us was we're getting down to the wire. We had a ton of beautiful keyframes, but we were out of time. We had to deliver the project in like a couple weeks. And we're like, okay, there's lots of pencil sketch keyframes that still have a long way to go to get inked, to have the in-betweens for the most part were done by the animators. But to get inked and to be colored, you have to redraw the same frame two more times.
Or cleaned up in this case, probably.
Cleaned up,
inked,
and then and then colored. So you're drawing it like potentially 3 more times. And so that was, I was like, all right, well, we have a Cuco character model. What if we ran our pencil sketch through the Cuco character model and it sort of auto corrects it, and it adds all the stippled ink because it's been trained on the still images of Cuco. It adds all that detail that actually the animators were not adding to their frames, and it imbues it with the color that's from the data set. So it's just, I essentially say it's like a complex autocorrect for drawing. And what it also does is it helps all of our different animators, different countries, different hand styles, sort of unifies their aesthetic and puts them on model too, right? That's always an issue with 2D animation, is being on model. With people with, there can be a beautiful animator that just can't draw a character on model. So to me, these are the steps of the future where this becomes really helpful for 2D animation versus working against them.
So this is fascinating. Hold on, Tony. Let's dig into this just a second, because I love what you just said, and a lot of people eyes got wide there. Some got scared. Let's face it, the cleanup artists of the world. But let's just go there for a second. You just said I took all their rough animation, put it through, this, I'm going to call it an AI filter, which I know is not right, but you know what I mean. And it basically cleaned it up, put it on model, even add extra textures and stuff that were a part of that original trained model. And so basically
painted it.
But
too.
How did it, when it was doing that thought process of trying to, like you said, integrate all these different styles, versions of this character from these different artists, how is it not changing the expression to your default turn sheet?
Right.
Is it smart enough to know, oh wait, no, that it's blinking
like what
now.
To keep.
Right.
How does it know what to keep?
Mad
that's a very good question, actually. Because you are like,
it just did it.
Well, no, I mean, actually, in some cases, it did change the expression, and that's where we would go in and then redraw on top of it. And there's still cleanup work after the AI output. and things that we then manipulate to make sure that the expression is there. But there are different kinds of controls that you can implement in this style transfer process. And there's something that essentially is like a paint by numbers type of control that looks at the edges of an input and kind of makes sure that it paints by numbers, it paints within the lines of those edges. It reconstructs the image, but it tries to keep the structural integrity of anything with really defined hard edges.
Well,
so that's where,
Oh, so you're saying sometimes that the animators had to work kind of tight for it to really work well? Like if they had gaps, it would mess it up?
It honestly, it depends. Sometimes, yeah, I think if the expression was really specific, the tighter, the better. Surprisingly, sometimes with hands, it actually like was okay to be somewhat loose. Because it just knows the anatomy. Blinking is something where we would go in, like if the character did a blink, we would then have to, it didn't always understand that, and we'd have to go in and repaint and clean that up.
And where are you repainting? So are you taking this output and are you going into, say,
I think we did all, I think it was all Photoshop that was the cleanup work, yeah.
And so frame by frame kind of work at that point?
Sometimes, yeah. It was, or like every other frame or every 3 frame, we would just kind of be targeted with that. And then we would take that, put that back into composite our character into our style transferred background. In After Effects, we'd be adding lens effects, we'd be adding grain and glow and things that also help make it feel a little retro and give it some analog texture with it as well. So yeah, so that's essentially the full process.
That's great. I mean, it's really impressive, and it really helps us understand how AI is coming together to be used as a tool, although it does not sound like an easy tool to use yet, because things are still being developed and still being figured out. So I don't hear you saying that it was a huge time saver. I
think just only purely looking at AI as a time saver is, sort of, it doesn't necessarily, it's like, it's too narrow or it's too much of a, I guess, a simplistic way of looking at AI is just like, does it save me time and money? Of course, that's always an equation in a production, regardless of the scale. But what I think it does is it elevates a production in other ways. It allows you to do ideas that might have been too ambitious. We did not actually, I had a very crazy storyboards. We did not compromise on any of them. I was expecting, maybe we'll have to drop a scene or two or scale this back. We didn't compromise because we had all these things at our disposal that we were able to be more ambitious. And again, going back to the aesthetic of Paul Flores, we brought scale to the production with his aesthetic. So, Family Guy and Simpsons, they look a certain way because they have to scale that production. Now we can scale a certain art style in a way that wouldn't have been scaled before. So it may be saving time had you gone that direction, but it puts you fundamentally in a different mentality when you're working. So rather than being like, oh my God, this is going to be such a pain in the to do, that sort of filter, that creative filter that like before you go and do something starts to get liberated a little bit, and you get to be a little more unfiltered with how you think of something. So you're not as scared of like, oh, what is this going to do, the time and schedule. You can be like, yeah, so let's go see, like, let's go try that idea. There's like the Aztec thing we almost cut. And then I was just like, I think we can do it. And we did that.
Oh, dang. Tony, our podcast just became adults only.
Oh, did I cross the line?
Oh, come on. No,
I'm so sorry.
We'll beep it out. That's to our producer.
You can add a cartoon horn.
I know.
Well, hold on, Tom. I got a question real quick
about
one of the questions I've always had about AI too, and you're the man to answer it, is like, I've always heard that it's hard to get it to iterate without it creating something brand new. So I'm looking at your video and that Aztec background where we're doing the camera move into that Aztec background. There's one moment where there's a color flicker that obviously is some kind of mistake or an accident.
Yes.
I don't know if that was
good eye.
Yeah, but if you wanted to fix
no
that,
question.
so if you
just wanted to point
just
that
want
out.
to call me out on the one part.
No. But if you wanted to fix that, like, how would you have to start over on that shot, or can you call out something like that, and the AI would understand that on that particular frame, it has to fix that color shift or something?
Is it editable? Is the question?
Yeah. I mean, again, I would go into the comp and fix it. I think that
just because it's easier,
we're out of time. You would either re-roll it and start over and kind of hope for the best, or if it's close enough, then you clean it up, you composite, and you fix certain frames. So that is definitely part of the process, and I think that's like that's what happens in VFX work. It's not too dissimilar to like having to fix certain frames.
And Tony and I honestly don't know that process. So there's a lot of people listening going, "Oh, Tony, that's easy." Yeah. But is it to dumb it down for people like us that are very kind of more 2D, traditionalists? Is it a process that you could? And I'm thinking actually going to the next level, and how far are we? The question being, how far away are we from the next level? Honestly, Paul, congratulations. You're a front runner. There is no doubt about it that this music video may one day be the one that they come back to and point to say, this is when that thing started. This is when
the Luxo Junior
evolved.
Wow.
And we're still praying that it's going to be evolving to the best of things. And thank you for starting in this way so that we could have something to point to. And honestly, I mean this, that is trying to use it as a tool. And that's the key to this podcast is there ways to understand AI and use it as a tool? And because it's here already, I just want our whole audience to hear that there's no going back. We do need to have our eye on this ball. And I am going to say that. So one day we may be enemies, Paul, but right now we're friends. And I'm saying this, that you have gone into this in a really creative way, artistic way, using a lot of tools that are already out there, but applying this extra one, AI, as a tool and trying to find new processes. And okay, so back to my question.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. That is very humbling.
And I mean it. That's why I reached out to you. Honestly, I'm seeking this out right now. Is this a world that we need to have knowledge about? Tony and I will acknowledge.
Absolutely.
We're teaching the next generation. We 100%. Can't put blinders on, right?
Yeah, and we can't ignore it. Yeah.
But we are old school 2D animators. Like honestly, like we're
Rescuers
Down Under, baby. Yeah.
I love that. Even everything you guys have done, has influenced me in so many ways. I really truly thought I was going to work for Disney when I was a kid, and I grew up watching the work you guys did. By the way, I also know Rob Minkoff.
He's a good friend of ours.
He's getting into the AI stuff. Not as surgical, but he's interested. Well, maybe a conversation you guys have.
But all producers out there are interested, whether they say it or not.
Exactly.
But, okay, so
but thank you for
and we're running out of time. That's why I'm trying to get to this. Because we could go another hour easy.
We could.
But Paul, now thinking, because the other mantra that Tony and I have is we want to save 2D animation. We don't want to see it go away.
I mean, 2D animation is already, now, fortunately, I feel like it's on a comeback. But I personally am biased towards 2D animation over 3D animation.
We appreciate that, Paul, but you're not hiring us. You're not going to hire us for your future project.
How do we? I want to bring.
Tony's too expensive. Don't continue.
No.
So obviously, so now when you talk to us, we start going and applying what you're saying to this higher end. All right, I want to make Pocahontas And I want to do it like we're talking about high-end drawing, high-end 2D, very graceful animation, right? I picked that one up. It's not Aladdin. It's even higher than that as far as drawing goes. Very difficult stuff
and sequences. Yeah.
And I want to have Glenn Keane thrown into AI. No, Miyazaki is.
Poor Glenn.
Oh, poor Glenn. Anyway, so if I'm approaching that, then I feel like there's at least where AI is right now, and we all know it's changing, it's growing. So we're only talking about right now in the present day. Could you make that kind of a performance? And honestly, and I'm going to throw an in-betweening because that's another area that people keep wondering. Is that something that
that's a big area.
Just a nice, like graceful slow in. And if you know animation terms, hopefully you know what that means. It's just like, imagine her waving and her hand just goes slower till it stops.
Yeah, that's a lot of frames.
That's a slow in. You don't want to do all those. Trust me, I've done them. We all have those tiny right now. Oh, hang up on it. Sorry, Bill Gates. Yeah, not working out. So that kind of work obviously wouldn't be bad to have it be even throwing in that ink and paint step too, of course. But where animators are coming in, they're able to do their job, do the best they can at getting it on model. And so maybe there's model revisions happening by the AI, like you were saying. Right. But adding in betweening and then but we were talking about very fine line. Like your style was kind of chunky, right? And it was part of the look. And so there's some forgivability there that you guys benefited from.
So is your question somewhere in here, Tom? Is it
my question
can they do that?
Yeah, like do you see ways into that now that you've done this very first step into it? And I know I'm talking about baby step to now running a marathon. What are your thoughts on that? How far away are we from that, I guess?
I mean, I think with everything we have now, we can definitely do an animated feature, and what we are doing at Asteria is some longer form animated films. So that is definitely in the works. It's happening. I'm sure there are other studios working on animated feature-length films using AI as well. And I think the differentiation is that we are still using animators in the process, and we're every project begins with an artist. That is something that is core to what we do here. Is that there is a lead artist that drives the style of that film, as well as animators and 3D artists and all that, and storyboard artists. All those steps, we are doing our best to keep that intact. I think to your earlier point, AI is not going away. It is incredibly powerful. If you just let the AI hype beasts and tech companies continue to use these tools and push an agenda and a narrative, you will diminish and wipe out the traditionalists' voice in this process. And so the point of what we're doing at Asteria is to take back that agency, because we do all come from live action production, from there's artists from Cartoon Network here. There's people that have from Lucasfilm that are here. There are people with strong traditional experience that are shaping how these tools are used and used responsibly. And the reality is, if you know how to do things without AI, then you have the most head start over anyone of the people that are just getting into using AI now. The people that have the traditional skills have the most to gain from AI, because they know what parts of their process, again, that they don't like, what parts of the process that they feel like they could speed up. They have already spent their 10,000 hours plus honing their craft, honing their voice, honing their perspective, developing their unique hand style, that they already have a leg up on anyone else that's using AI in a very homogenous way. And so I really encourage that the point of this project was maybe I was saying at the beginning, but it was really to appeal to traditional 2D animators and to show, look at what this technology can do in the right hands. And
yeah, well, it got our attention. That worked.
Yeah,
Good job.
Sure did.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
I have one last question, Tony. You can do yours if you want, but here's my last question. In the pursuit of making this music video in this new way, what did you? We want to hear the dirty little secret. What's the tea? What did you find out that AI sucked at? What was the thing that was
I mean, a lot of the in-betweens are still hard. I think that's something that's being worked out.
Oh, we didn't complete that conversation. Did you use in-betweens at all?
We did some in-betweening process here and there, but it was for like less critical kind of like transitionary poses and things.
Sure.
One of the rotation shots, to your point of like that kind of Pocahontas fluidity. Because Eric Foster, the lead animator, he was saying, he's like slow motion is harder than fast motion. He's like, I can animate fast motion, but like animate it, because I was like, oh, I want the character to animate slow. And so there's parts where that AI in-betweening helps. But there's parts that it just does not understand, especially in this like wacky, kooky style. It doesn't understand like a hand moving from here to here at what rate. It doesn't even understand the anatomy sometimes. It still sucks at text, at shrinking text down to details. Just purely asking it to animate a character. We did do some AI like animation for background characters, for like inconsequential characters.
Yeah, and they're just like bobbing up and down or something.
Exactly, just like loop like idle cycles. We did use AI for, but sometimes those are characters. If you look back at 90s like TV cartoons, like sometimes those are characters that would have no motion to them at all, right? They'd just be stills. And so those are areas where we're like, but it doesn't, like if you ask it to do something more than an idle cycle, it is not great at that, and as it should be. So that's
weird movements. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony, I lied. One more question. If you were to make a sequel to this music video, and this leads into TV animation production, right?
Right.
If this was your first pilot episode of a TV show, so think of it like that, and you're about to do the second episode or a sequel to this music video, do you see that there's a lot of assets that you would now just be adding to, and now number 2 music video is going to be a lot cheaper, faster?
Correct. Yes, so that is something we're exploring, is like, how do we built a universe, we've built a look, we've built characters, a city, we have a character who has every pose and angle on him. In theory, yes, like production gets exponentially faster. The more you make, the more like data you to dumb it down you are creating. And we could make more and more of Cuco world faster, but you want to keep it. You want to keep pushing it. You don't want it to feel regurgitated. So you want to still have fresh animation done and fresh keyframes and all that done, so it doesn't feel so recycled. But it'll, I think for TV has a lot to benefit from this, because now we're thinking, okay, if we did do this as a series, locations are not a problem. We could go to 70 locations in one episode or something like that. Because you're always like, oh, can't we just go back to the office or the living room? Like, you're like, let's go anywhere. Like, why stop? Like, now stories change, right?
Because it can iterate a location probably a lot easier and better results than a character, I would imagine.
Yeah, think of it like a fractal, where like that city, you could continuously zoom into a corner of that city, into the liquor store, into the like refrigerator of that liquor store, because of all the rules that you have built. So you can expand that universe much faster, and therefore stories can change, and that's what's really exciting. We're also playing with, we've rigged a Cuco puppet that works with like a web camera. And then could we do some webcam animation, then like draw on top of it, style transfer that, and looking into some other kind of like experimental methods of doing animation.
Yeah. Man, Paul, I love what you're doing. It's so awesome.
Oh, thank you.
We just want to thank you for being with us today, because this has been so informative, not only for Tom and I, but I'm sure for a lot of our listeners. You're on the cutting edge, and that's cool.
Oh wow! I mean, it's surreal to hear that from both of you guys. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your craft and your eye for it, and also your willingness to bring me on and to not hesitate. And I hope that the message does to get out to the traditional animators. And I keep saying, if you are scared of something, you should walk towards it. That is the only way you learn. So, to the 2D animators that maybe hate on AI, I say just look into it. You can continue to hate it, but at least explore it and know what you're grappling with.
Yeah, and know if it is something that can be used as a tool that actually helps you in some way. You might be surprised.
And we're working on a clean model. Mary, which is coming from Moon Valley, is our deep research side.
Oh, was this a commercial you were trying to do earlier?
I need to do a plug at the end, guys. Sorry.
Go ahead. It's fair. Go ahead.
It just relates to, like, if people are on the fence ethically, we are here to provide a solution for that as well. Because the point is to not steal people's stuff, not lose jobs, and eventually reduce energy consumption. So the three things that are controversial around AI, we're trying to tackle head on.
Now, who's doing that? You said, is this your studio doing that, or you're working with
another? Yeah, so it's Asteria is the creative side, and Moon Valley is the sort of like from Google DeepMind kind of people that started Moon Valley. And so
you're a part of that
together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're partnered together. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep our eyes on you.
Please do. Be in touch.
Yeah, there's a Forbes magazine article that's going to have some quotes from you coming out.
Oh yeah, and then you
I learned in a comment.
Variety, and then I think I connected you with something else too. So yeah. Happy to keep throwing you guys in the mix there too, if you want to comment.
I only
throw us around.
I'm looking forward to reading what you said in that article, and
likewise,
more from you coming. So
it's exciting. All right, we needed.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
To us. Thanks,
this
buddy.
was amazing, Paul.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And put in the comments wherever you see this, please. We're going to want to know: should we be doing a part 2 with Paul? And do you have more questions? Let's hear those questions.
Happy to come back.
And Tom, as we always say, animate with AI.
AI. Oh. From the heart.
From the heart. Absolutely.
That's how you keep it.
That's right.
That's the
That's
right.
If you like what you just saw, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pencilish Studios.